All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Dealing the Cards. We've got so much to talk about today. We're going to be giving each other some trade proposals, talking about how we feel about the Cardinals now that they're 4 games above 500, a high watermark for the 2024 squad. But all of that coming up next on this episode of Dealing the Cards. All right. So the Cardinals, with the win yesterday, now have the best record they've had since September of 2022. They're 4 games above 500. And before we get started talking about how they can win the trade deadline, I want to ask some important questions about this team, right? So on May 7th, I tweeted that the Cardinals were dead. Wilson Contreras had just left the game. They blew a big lead against the Mets, dropped their 3rd in a row after getting beat by the White Sox in what was just an embarrassing series. And I declared the 2024 Cardinals dead and buried. Fast forward about 7 weeks, the Cardinals have the second wildcard spot locked down. They're only 2 games behind the Braves for the first spot. The division is kind of within reach right now. They're only 6 games back. They're 6 games ahead of the Cubs, who at that point in time were 5 or 6 games ahead of them. The team looks really good right now. They're 4 games above 500. In the last 7 weeks, they've been the best team in the National League. So is it fair to say that we were wrong about this team? Of course we were wrong when we said the team was dead and buried. But were we wrong to say that this was just a mid-baseball team? If not for a pretty bad skid, which obviously we can't just say that week doesn't count. But when the Cardinals lost 7 games in a row, part of it was losing Contreras, part of it was just everything snowballing. Since then, they're, I think, they were 9 under at their worst point, right? So they're 13 games over 500 since that skid ended. That's crazy. No other team in the National League has been that good over the last 7 weeks. So is it fair to say this team deserves more? Because when we were thinking about this episode, we were saying that, the ideal deadline for the Cardinals is adding a 5th starter, maybe another starter, but nothing in the top of the rotation, nothing to push them over the top. Is it fair to say that this team has warranted more investment? Should we be thinking about augmenting this team and preparing them for a postseason run? Because they really have been that good over the last 2 months. So Andrew, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, this team has proven me wrong over and over again, which is good to see. Like I want this team to do that, and I'm going to continue to say that I don't believe in this team, like kind of tongue in cheek, because that tends to be what happens when I don't believe in somebody in baseball. Like just take the Cubs rookie, for example, who is pitching today against the Phillies. He's probably going to torch them because that's just how good he is. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that this team is probably better than we had anticipated. Best record in the National League since May 12th, since Mother's Day, which is pretty fun. That's starting to be like a lot longer sample size than we initially.
Big sample size. It's 50 days.
Usually the Cardinals have the best second half record up until the trade deadline, because that just tends to be how they go in the second half. And that's usually like a 2-3 week span, but it's been over a month. We're approaching 2 month period, a month and a half now, where they've been the best team in the National League. Obviously they started off and they were horrible. But you've been better than the Dodgers and the Phillies for the last month, record wise. And I mean, I'm not going to go out and say that I think that they're better, but obviously I don't think that they've built a roster that's better than LA or Philly.
Sure, I won't say that.
I think they probably have, they're probably 1 or 2 pieces away from being close enough to compete with them in the playoffs, where it's not just oh, maybe you have a 20% chance of winning the series. You might have a 40% chance of winning the series if you add at the deadline what you need to make this team better. And if your star hitters that you're paying $30 million a year maybe have an OPS above 650, that also helps.
That would make a big difference.
With those 2 guys not performing the way that you would expect it, if you told me that going into the season, that by the All-Star break, Goldie and Arenado would have OPS under 700 and both be below league average, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, we're selling at the deadline and we're not going to be competitive at all. We're going to finish probably in 4th or 5th place, and this team is going to be just like last year. And if you also told me that Nolan Gorman in June would be almost as bad, if not as bad as Nolan Gorman was last June, honestly, he might have been worse. but I don't know. Yeah,
No, it wasn't quite as bad. He was like worst hitter in baseball last June.
Yeah, but he was batting like 140. He was striking out like 60% of the time this past June. It's like, I don't know. Either way, I think we would have been talking about before the season started that that's a lot worse of a team than we actually got. So I'm very surprised by how the results of this team have been going. But honestly, it seems to be sustainable at this point, right? Because they're 4 games over 500, and their star are not playing like star hitters. In fact, they're getting their production from like Alec Burleson, who I thought was a 4th outfielder at best at the end of last season. So I'm excited, and I think, yeah, I wouldn't go out and trade for Garrett Crochet and Luis Robert, but I'm probably going to make some bigger swings than I initially would have if this team was like just hovering around the playoffs. And it's not even like when I said a couple weeks ago that it's like, oh, you have all these teams clumped together within like 3 games of the wild card. You have like 6 teams like within that. No, not really. Like you have teams like the Cubs are 6 games back of you.
Exactly.
Like
I was going to address that too.
Between you and the Brewers right now. So like if you think the Cubs can make up that gap, then you can easily chase the Central, right?
Thank you. Absolutely.
And like teams like the Nationals are falling out of it. The Reds are kind of falling out of it. The Pirates, hopefully you can take the next 2 games and really sink their season, right? The Giants, I don't believe in them. And the Diamondbacks and the Mets are kind of the 2 other teams I'm looking at and being like, oh, it's kind of scary. But the Diamondbacks are 3.5 games back right now. And they're not nearly as complete of a team, I think, as the Cardinals are, mostly due to like injuries and some underperformance from guys like Corbin Carroll. But I'm a lot more bought in on this team than I was a couple weeks ago. I'm not saying that they're like destined to make a run or anything, but you have the ingredients to win right now, and you can easily go and add at the deadline.
100%. Yeah, I wanted to say something about that too. People have been talking about, oh, there's going to be no sellers in the National League. Right now, if it was the trade deadline today, the Cubs should be selling, right?
They're shopping Nico Horner right now, who I think they have a couple more years of control.
They do. They have a lot of control with him, and it's a weird time to sell him. You're selling really low on a guy that Cubs fans at least were super high on, even coming into this year.
But that doesn't help us.
8 games below
us at all.
That's fine. It doesn't help us, but it could open up the market to have more teams selling.
Yeah.
The Cubs are 8 games below 500. The Nationals are 7 games below 500. The Pirates, they're 4 games back. Like, even if these teams play at the clip the Cardinals have played for the last 7 weeks, right? So over that time, we're talking about almost a 50-game sample when the Cardinals have had the best record in baseball. They've made up like 13 games in that span. But now you have a fraction of that span. So even if the Cubs play at that pace, they'd still be below 500 on deadline day at the end of this month. Like, that's a team that's probably going to sell. I just think that this whole idea that the wild card picture was too crowded, that the Cardinals shouldn't go for it, it's being proven wrong right before our eyes. Like you said, things are thinning out in the standings. So I don't know. I just think that people have not given the Cardinals the credit they deserve. This team is still being evaluated like a borderline wild card team, when in reality, they've had a playoff spot for the last 2 weeks or so. All they've done is continue to play well, continue to put distance between themselves and the pack. They've continued to chase down the Braves, and they've hung tight in the division. So those are things we need to think about when we're talking about this team. Everything has gone very well for the last 50 days. That's a huge sample, like you were saying, at least compared to the 2 to 3 weeks that we're normally reacting to like this. And it's something that we need to think about. But I guess, moving on from there, that allows us to kind of get into our trade deadline ideas. So Andrew, we'll have you go first. We'll just explain this exercise really quickly. This is basically like, how do the Cardinals win the trade deadline, right? We're trying to be realistic here. So I'm not going to be like, oh, the Cardinals win the trade deadline by acquiring Aaron Judge. Of course, that would be awesome, but that would never happen. So what's more realistic here is we've been talking about maybe adding another starter, potentially adding another starter or a bench bat, and then adding a relief pitcher. And it's like, if the Cardinals do these things, they do them well, this team could actually, win the trade deadline, supposedly. So it's not about maybe making the splashiest move. It's just making the best and most realistic moves. So Andrew, show me what you've got.
Well, apparently the lineup's out, so you go first, because I gotta take care of that.
All right. Well, I'll go first then. I've been kind of workshopping some of these still, but I think one place the Cardinals need to add is their bullpen. the Cardinals have what might be the best bullpen in the National League to this point. It has been awesome. Ryan Helsley on pace to break the save record in the National League. Could break the save record overall, right? 62 from K-Rod in like 2008 or something. So that's pretty cool. And Helsley's already got 31, and we're, I think, 83 or 84 games in. So he could easily reach 60. He'd only be the second guy to ever do that. But as good as the bullpen's been, and I think the overworked relievers thing is a little overplayed. I'm not sure how true that actually is. But the Cardinals could obviously, just like every other team that's ever existed, use more help in the pen. You know, they could always use a little more depth. And I think that one spot they could get that is Kirby Yates. Yates this year has been unbelievable, right? And he's going to be a popular name around the deadline. So they could find themselves in some sort of bidding war. Yates is with Texas. I think the Rangers are a clear seller at this point. I'd be really surprised if they didn't sell. And it's really weird coming off their championship. But I think it's time. I think it's time for them to sell. They're way below 500. Can't really see them getting a great shot. And so I think he's definitely going to be moved. Now, can the Cardinals acquire him? The numbers are crazy, right? 28 games, 28 innings, 0.95 ERA, good for a 4.17 ERA plus. He hasn't been quite that good, but still the 1.96 FIP indicates that he has been incredible. The strikeout rate is nice and high at 12 per 9. He hasn't given up a single homer this year. So even if those stats come back down to earth a little bit, he becomes like a really elite bullpen arm still. And so I think the Cardinals should be in on that. I'm not sure exactly how much this costs because of what could be a real bidding war around him. But I think a really good spot to start for the Cardinals would be 2 top 30 prospects. So I'm looking at Zach Levinson, who's an outfielder that the Cardinals believe in long-term. They used a pretty high draft pick on him. I think he was a second rounder. He's a guy with some pop, could play center field at some point. And then Brunelli Franco is an interesting pitcher with some good tools. So I think if you were able to do both of those, I'll set that in the chat really quickly. So Zach Levinson and Brunelli Franco. I think this is a good spot to start. I think this is kind of a heavy return for a reliever, just like in a vacuum. But I think here that's probably about what it would cost. Andrew, what are your thoughts on adding someone like Kirby Yates?
Yeah, my other trade idea was to go for another reliever like of a similar caliber. Kirby Yates has been pretty inconsistent throughout his career, but this year it seems like whenever he's good, he's like really good, which is interesting to me. I think he's approaching like the end of his career, kind of right around what Mo tends to go after at these kinds of deadlines, offseason sort of thing. But I mean, you do need another lockdown reliever back there, I think, just to like fully shore it up. Keenan Middleton. You need to replace the production that you were theoretically going to get out of him that he's just not going to give you this year. I think that makes a lot of sense. Expecting somebody to be like sort of like a late innings, not a closer because you have that. But honestly, maybe you can shop Helsley if you get a guy like Kirby Yates at the trade deadline to get something else like from the Orioles. Because I think Helsley's worth more than a guy like Kirby Yates, but Kirby Yates could give you similar production for a playoff run. I think, honestly, that works just fine for me. I think Yates could be like a very valuable back-end guy, and you never can have enough bullpen arms, like you said. And I'm into that. My trade idea was for the Angels closer, who just won reliever of the month. He's always been an under the radar kind of guy to me, but he just won reliever of the month, so I guess he can't really do that. But Carlos Estevez from the Angels is the guy that I'm looking at. You're right; you probably have to give up a top 30 prospect to get him. But I'm going to start with 2 guys that I think the Angels would be somewhat interested in, just like pieces to fill out the rebuild, who could hit, who could not. Because Estevez, like, this is probably the best year he's ever had in his career, and he started horribly this season. So you're not really sure which one you're going to get. Not sure if people are going to really want to pay up for that. I'm starting off with Dylan Carlson and Luken Baker, but then we have to add a top 30 prospect, and I'm not prepared. So I will look through the top 30 prospects list and see who I want to give up. Probably somebody like I don't know, like Cesar Prieto could be a good piece to add to get that reliever, and I think probably gets the job done for Estevez. Carlson still has a couple years left to control, which is good. And you need those. They're going to need pieces that are closer to major league ready, because for whatever reason, the Los Angeles Angels want to contend before Mike Trout's career is over. And it's probably going to be within the next 3 years where they are going to try to get back to playoff contention. Is it going to work? Probably not, but they're going to try. And they're going to want some of those guys that are closer to major league ready. Prieto, I believe, is in AAA. Baker and Carlson are both major league players. Baker kind of a fringe guy, but all guys you can supplement the roster with for a reliever that honestly hasn't been that great in an Angels uniform aside from this past month.
Yeah, I like the Estevez idea. I think it's somebody, again, who, like Yates, is going to get a lot of attention. He's an established back-end arm, but like you said, he's had some ups and downs in his career, although this year looks really good. This past month, obviously, he just won reliever of the month in the AL, which is fun because Helsley won in the NL, but he's been really good. The FIP is below 3. The strikeout rate is nice. He's allowed a couple of homers this year, but nothing crazy. So I could be really interested in that. I think what you've put is actually maybe even a little overpay if you're talking about Cesar Prieto. I think a lot of front offices are higher on him than they were a year ago. The Cardinals have kind of transformed him as a prospect. He's added some power. His bat's much better. He profiles as a guy who probably won't be an all-star, but could be an MLB regular at some point, which seemed well beyond his ceiling when they acquired him. What was that? In the Jack Flaherty deal with Baltimore, I think. So he was kind of a throw-in depth option. Mm-hmm. But I like it. I think Estevez would make this team better. They do need to add a reliever. So it might not be Yates. It might not be Estevez. It might not be a reliever of that caliber, but they've got to add somebody to help the pen. They just always do. And the Cardinals have done well with acquired relievers in recent years, guys they haven't overpaid for. Like Jojo Romero is a great example of a guy they got at a deadline who's been unbelievable for them in the last 2 years. So this next trade, now I'm talking about adding a starter, and this is a bigger trade. So I've packaged a starter and a reliever from Colorado, which is kind of a weird place to go trade for pitching, I know. But just bear with me here.
Austin Gomber from Nolan Arenado. Honestly, yeah. I'm not saying no to that.
If they take all the money, I'd probably say yes right now.
Well, they're already taking half the money, so.
Not anymore, though. I wish.
Yeah.
They'll pay us $50 million again. But so I'm talking about acquiring Cal Quantrill, who's been really good this year. The numbers on Cal are pretty impressive. He's got 2.6 WAR already this year because he's stuck pitching in Colorado. But let's see, a 3.78 ERA in 95 innings. The strikeouts are down. He only gets 72 strikeouts in those 95 innings, so it's 6.8 per 9, which is really bad. But the Cardinals like those kinds of guys. He might have some walk issues. He's basically Dakota Hudson, except he's much better at getting outs and preventing.
You could also get him from the Rockies if you really want.
Yeah, you could, but there's no chance I would ever want to watch Dakota Hudson ever again. Please. It was almost as bad as Ponce de Leon. But I'm getting Quantrill and Victor Vodnik, and in exchange, I'm sending back Cesar Prieto, Gordon Graceffo, Juan Bin Cho, and Lucan Baker. So I think this is about what it would cost. I don't want to give up Cho either. I see Cody in the chat saying that. I understand. But I would rather give him up than Thomas Sajazi at this point. And I feel like it's going to take one of those guys to get a real starter. Quantrill for this team probably slots in as a 3 or 4. He's been able to give the Rockies pretty good innings. He's averaging about 6 innings per start, which the Cardinals would love to have another guy who's racking up innings, especially because there are question marks around whether Lance Lynn can effectively eat innings at this point. Even though he was great the last time out, there have been plenty of times this year where he's only gone, 4.5 or 5. So that's not what you want to see. So that'd be awesome. And then Vodnik obviously has been an excellent reliever for Colorado this year. He has a ton of control left too. He's got a 4.09 ERA, 3.93 FIP, and he was all right last year in a small sample size. So I would be really interested in making a move like this. I think it might cost a little bit more than this. Maybe they would want some major league talent. Yes, Josh, we traded most water holder for cash considerations. $1, just like the Dallas Keuchel trade. But I think this is about what it would cost, unless, again, there's some kind of bidding war. I think Quantrill is going to be a popular name around the deadline. But obviously Crochet and guys like him, maybe Scherzer even, will steal more of the headlines. So maybe the Cardinals can sneak around and get a pitcher who, actually is worth something without having to give up too much. But I think that could be really good. So Andrew, what do you think about that kind of move?
Yeah, I like the move for Quantrill. I think he's a clear candidate to get traded at the deadline. Victor Vodnik, I really do like him as well. I just don't know if Colorado would do it because he still has, he's a rookie this year. So you're going to have to give up a little bit more for him. And I don't really like the idea of trading for relievers with a lot of control because relievers are very volatile and you could give up some pieces that are really, really valuable. Like you could give up something that's a really good position player to the Rockies, and Victor Vodnik could flame out in the next 2 years and just completely flame out, right? That's why I think the A's are really smart to try to trade Mason Miller, because they're not going to be competitive in the next 5 years. They could get an absolute haul for him. Honestly, Mason Miller to the Cubs, maybe, I don't know. They're not going to be buyers at this deadline, but that would have been fun to watch Mason Miller flame out with the Cubs, and for the Cubs to give up 3 top 10 prospects or something for him.
But Mason Miller in to a elite starter. So
yeah, right. I mean, there's also that risk, but I do like Vodnik. I think he'd be a great addition, but I also am a little bit wary of giving up too much for him because what the Rockies would want for a guy like that is probably a lot riskier. And some of the guys that you listed could end up being really good. Cho is somebody that I feel I wouldn't give him up for the upside of Quantrill and Vodnik is a lot less than the upside of Cho. Is Cho going to hit that upside? Maybe not, but someone like that could end up being a really good player later down the line. I do like it though. I just maybe just trade for Quantrill and not for Vodnik, because I feel Vodnik is taking up a pretty big chunk of the cost in that trade package. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing I like about Quantrill is the extra control, because he's signed through 2025. He's still arbitration eligible right now. So he'll probably cost between 9 and 11 million next year, which for the Cardinals, that's great, because if you have another guy like him who's controllable in the 4 or 5 spot, then you don't have to worry about multiple pitchers being ready for next year. I understand what Josh is saying about aiming higher, and I really do think it's okay to say that. Maybe the Cardinals should aim higher, especially with what we were just talking about, with how good they've been in recent weeks. But I do like the control, right? Because you're worried about next year if what happens if Jerpy and Hentz aren't ready still. Then you're at the same spot you were this year, and maybe it doesn't work when you sign Lynn and Gibson next year. Maybe you go out and get some bargain bin pitchers and they're not this great. But I think it's interesting. I think the problem with this deadline is what we've said before. The teams with pitching are winning, and the teams that don't have pitching are the teams that are selling. There are so few good pitchers on clear sellers, right? Because Josh just put Verlander, Pivetta, Severino. I like those guys. I think those guys all make our team better. But the Astros are now above 500. They're not selling. The Red Sox are in contention for a wild card spot. I cannot see them selling. And we talked about Severino off the show before this started. I can't see the Mets selling right now. Andrew, you made a point because I was bringing up a Severino deal before I threw Quantrill out there. And yeah, right now the Mets don't sell. The Mets are trying to win. They have a $308 million payroll. They do not want to be sellers with that 2 years in a row.
Would you trade Tink Hence for Grimace, assuming that Grimace would give you a 15-game winning streak or something?
It's such a hard question now. Is our offense good if I get Grimace? Because the Mets had the highest.
You presumably win a bunch of games in a row. What if Grimace fixes Arenado for the playoffs?
Do I have to trade for Grimace before the deadline? Because if I could trade for Grimace in
you can have him whenever, you can use him whenever you want.
Oh, well, I'll just use him in October. So yeah, I would probably trade Tink Hence for a championship. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do like Tink Hence long term. But yeah, so that's kind of that deal. It's a lot, obviously, that I'm putting out there, but you're getting a lot of control. You're getting 5 years of control from an intriguing reliever, 2 years of control from a good starter. So that's why you got to give up something to get something. And that keeps you from having to use major league pieces. So.
Yeah. I mean, my next trade will be with the Rangers as well. I'm going to go after a guy who at one point wanted to be here, which is something that Mo tends to value. I don't know if he wants to be here anymore because I think there was some reports that he felt slighted by the Cardinals organization, but I'm going to go out and get Max Scherzer, assuming he wants to be here and will waive his no trade. It seems like a good fit. He's just at the right age to be in the Cardinals uniform, so maybe that's what they were waiting for. But I'm going to ship off Tekoa Roby. He's going back to Texas. He'll be a nice piece to add to their potential rotation of the future. And then I'm going to give up. I had it written down earlier and I can't find it. Jimmy Crooks, and then I'm going to give up Andre Granillo for Max Scherzer. And presumably Texas would eat a little bit of that salary. I know the Mets are already paying off a lot of it, but the Cardinals have made it a point to not go over the luxury tax this year, even though I really don't know why they wouldn't. I think sometimes the team is worth investing in. And the luxury tax, like if you go over it by like $3 million, you're not really paying that much extra. It's not really that big of a deal to me. But the Texas will eat a little bit of that contract, and they'll get 3 really promising prospects. One of which they're quite familiar with, and I think they'll like that package. Scherzer is getting up there in age, but he's been really good since he came back from injury. Not sure how he will pitch in the playoffs like last year for the Rangers. I think he was used as like a 4th starter, but I think he has the experience. Maybe he'll kick into another gear now that he's playing for the Cardinals, his hometown team. And yeah, it's a little bit under the radar. He'll be a free agent next year. Maybe you'll sign him back because I mean I'm sure he wants to be here. Assuming like my thing is if he was angry with Mo for not bringing him in when he wanted to sign with St. Louis for a discount, maybe he'll sign when Heim blooms the Pobo. So I don't know. I think Scherzer's exciting. He'll be a good piece for a playoff run. But I'm not done with adding starters yet. I know you want to add a bat, but I'm going to add another starter as my last trade. So yeah.
Yeah, I like this move. I think bringing in Scherzer would be really fun. I would love to see the Cardinals actually get him in a Cardinals uniform. Like you said, he's a hometown kid. I think he went to Parkway Central, maybe, if I'm remembering properly. But that'd be really, really fun. It'd be great to see Scherzer here. I'm sure everyone by now has heard the story about Scherzer telling the Cardinals to get within the ballpark, talking to Adam Wainwright, and then having them not even call him. But look, if he's willing to give the organization another chance, if he wants to come home and pitch, that'd be really cool. He's also, like you said, a guy who's a potential impact pitcher. He would immediately become your number 2 behind Sonny Gray. And he's the kind of guy that if he's on, could help you win a championship. And that's what the Cardinals should be trying to do. So I would love to see that. I think this return is probably about right for Texas, and it could get them to take on a little bit. It would be tough to see Roby leave the organization so quickly after getting him. We've been excited about him, but his year's kind of been a tumultuous one with the Cardinals. He had a really bad fall league stint, although that doesn't really matter that much. I wouldn't read into it too terribly much. He hasn't been great this year. He's fallen down some prospect lists. So I don't know. Cody points out that Max's injury history is a little concerning. He's barely pitched since signing that deal with the Mets, and that's true.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know. At this point, there are going to be so few impact starters available that aren't going to cost everything. It's probably worth making this kind of deal. So I think I would say yes.
He's pitching game 2 for me, and then Kyle Gibson's pitching game 3. But like in a wild card series, Sonny Gray, Max Scherzer. I mean, yeah. It's a lot better than Jose Quintana and Miles Michaelis, and that almost won you a series. So you never know.
Yeah, it's true. Well, do you want to hear my last one? It's as boring as the other ones.
I mean, you love these like boring trades. Like you're just like Mo.
Yeah, it's true. I am just like Mo. I'll hold his water, especially because Josh isn't here. But I'm kind of thinking that the Cardinals need to add some sort of bat that can play some center field, even if it's not the fix for the rest of the season. Tommy Edman just is in witness protection program, hiding somewhere in a bunker. And I'm really worried about Nootbaar staying healthy right now. So I've done some searching. I think there are 2 options that kind of have emerged here. One option is Kevin Pillar. Yeah, I wish.
He's
Kevin
basically
Pillar,
Metro.
right now, Kevin Pillar is an option. Kevin Pillar is having a ridiculous stretch. He started the season really poorly. He was with the White Sox in 17 games. He had a 650 OPS, good for an 84 OPS plus. I think he got released, right? They DFA'd him.
Yeah, they
Angels
cut him.
pick him up.
Tough.
Angels pick him up. Since then, 39 games, 130 plate appearances, 911 OPS, 152 OPS plus. Legitimately has been one of the best hitters in baseball since that point. He's hitting over 300. He's slugging almost 550. Like, he would be far and away the best hitter in the Cardinals lineup right now. Is Kevin Pillar that guy, though? Absolutely not.
No.
Over the course of his career, he's never approached this level of production. If his season ended today, he'd have 56 games played and 140 OPS plus. The best he's ever done in a full year is, I think, a 106. Nope, that was only 54 games in 2020, shortened season. Has basically never done anything like this before. The best he's ever been is like slightly below league average in the low 90s to mid 90s. So this is out of character for him. I don't know where it's coming from, where the hot streak's coming from. And I think the Cardinals would be like buying high for a guy like him. So I'm actually kind of out on Kevin Pillar. I'm more interested, believe it or not, in Kevin Kiermaier, who's having a complete opposite type of year. He's got a 514 OPS, a 47 OPS plus.
That's like worse than Gianni.
Yeah. But he's got still been a positive WAR player. He actually has the same WAR as Kevin Pillar through all of this. He's played in a couple more games. But Kevin Kiermaier throughout his career has actually been a better hitter than Kevin Pillar by quite a wide margin. He's finished with an OPS plus over 100 in 5 separate seasons, all of which he played a significant amount of games. Even going back to last year, when he was a 103 OPS plus hitter, so basically Tommy Edman at the plate with gold glove defense in center field. And if you can get back last year's Pillar, I think that is last year's Kiermaier, I think that's really interesting. And I think it would cost you almost nothing. A good comp for this would be the Paul DeJong trade last year, where you have a guy who is very good defensively and still is deriving some kind of value from that, but the floor is kind of fallen out. And they gave up almost nothing for him. We got, who was it? Swanson, right? Matt Swanson, who was a overage AA pitcher. And so I think the Cardinals really could move like Pete Hansen and make that deal happen. And the Blue Jays are clear sellers. I think that would be interesting. I know he's a left-handed hitter, and so that's maybe not what people are totally interested in. But I think he's a good platoon option, especially if you're worried about Edman coming back. So, but like you said, they have Ciani. So maybe you just stick with Ciani, who arguably has been a better defender. But if you're going to stick with Ciani, then don't look for outfield help, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like the issue is, one, I still am holding out a little bit of hope that Tommy Edman is still alive.
Yeah.
And I feel like if he comes back, like, we don't need anybody. And
True.
Apparently he's going to come back before the All-Star break. I don't know. Is he going on rehab? Does anybody have that information? I don't know. But Kevin Kiermaier, like, he has worse numbers than Ciani this year. I think defensively, you're not really going to upgrade from Ciani.
You're not.
And like,
I like
Kevin Pillar, yeah. Kevin Pillar on the Angels reminds me a lot of Matt Carpenter on the Yankees. I just don't think it's real.
Yeah, don't touch it. I agree.
So like, I don't think that's really somebody I would go with. Like, obviously, if he's going to put up those kinds of numbers, you can just basically steal him, because the Angels, I mean, they're going to trade him. They're going to trade everybody. But like, I don't know if Dylan Carlson and Michael Ciani is really worse than any of the options that we could be going after, because any of the other options that you're going after in center field, like, there's not that many that are available.
Yeah.
And there's not that many that are good. Like, Tommy Pham is fine, I guess, but
I don't like Pham.
I don't know if he's great defensively. I don't know if I really want to do that. I don't think he's played too much center field, like, throughout his different stints with different teams over the years. But
yeah,
I think adding another outfielder is kind of unnecessary, unless you're telling me that Tommy Edman is out for the season. But for now, I'm somewhat inclined to believe the front office that Tommy Edman will come back at some point, and he's not going to stub his toe in the shower and be like, oh, he's done. So, I mean, honestly, like, these injuries, like, they just sound made up. Like, he was taking infield drills and he sprained his ankle. I was like, how does that happen? Like, I've never heard of that before. Like, it sounds like you just made that up.
It's a conspiracy. They don't know
Yeah.
where he is, and they're just making up new injuries.
Yeah, I mean, like we see pictures of him on the field from like Jeff Jones, but like they could be AI generated. I don't know. So my last trade coming from Toronto as well, like Kevin Kiermaier. I'm going to go out and get Yusei Kikuchi. One of the really hyped up Japanese pitchers who never really panned out. I was kind of hoping that was going to be another guy that the Cubs signed, but he's obviously the best pitcher in the world, and no one can tell me otherwise anymore. But he's been pretty solid ever since he was traded to the Blue Jays. You know, his first year was pretty rough, 5.19 ERA, but last year he was a lot better, 3.86 with a 4.12 FIP. This year, the FIP and ERA numbers are kind of like flip-flopped. He has a 3.53 FIP, but his ERA is 4.18. So some of the results might not be as pretty, but he's doing his job. His striking hitters out at a fairly good clip, 9.5 per 9 innings. So just a little bit over 1 per 9 innings. The walks have always been a little bit of an issue for him, but I think that should be okay. Like, we have Lance Lynn on this roster. We'll survive. And just adding someone into the back of the rotation, like adding 2 starters, I think is a little bit aggressive, but I think you have the pieces to get it done because you're not adding like the top end starters with a bunch of control. You're not adding Crochet. You're not adding like Jesus Luzardo. You're not adding those guys who are like the top end talent and the top end control. You're adding somewhat like mid-tier players on rental deals. I think Kikuchi would be a good player to go out and get. And for him, did I already trade Jimmy Crooks? I don't think I did. Did I?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to trade, and I traded Prieto. Oh, this is so tough.
I know.
Oh man. I'm gonna give Toronto Goran Graceffo and Edwin Nunez. And
that might even be overpaying because he's just a rental at this point.
See, like everyone last time on our trade said that we were underpaying. So I kind of went a little bit more on some of the values. So it's like, because people were like, even like the Crochet and Robert trade, like so many White Sox fans were like, that's such an overpay. I was like, well, we're not going to do it anyway. So I don't know what the problem is, but or that was an underpay that what we were trying to do with like Walker and Hens. But I've been trying to give a little bit more value. Maybe we should like be going kind of in the middle, but I'm going to give up those 2 pitching prospects for Yusei Kikuchi. Yeah. I don't think Graceffo really has that much value. Like, he was great in his relief outing, but like that was such a small sample size against the Reds team that already won the game. I don't know if like it would have really. I don't think it really would have like changed anybody's mind. Like, I don't think he's starter material at the major league level quite yet. Like, he could obviously come up and prove me wrong. Now that I say that, he's going to be our like number 3 starter for the next 6 years. But I don't know how much he would be valued. So I think Nunez would probably be the headliner in that trade, honestly.
I mean, I think people like Graceffo's potential in the bullpen, and I think it's fine. When his his velocity's down this year, which has kind of been frustrating. But I don't know. I think that might be more than you would have to give away. But like you said, people told us we were underpaying last time, so maybe we'll do a little overpaying to bounce back.
I don't have BTV anymore because it's paid. I don't want to pay for that. BTV it's also not that kind of service. Yeah.
Zodiac with an interesting question about trading Valdez from Houston. I think he is hurt right now, but Houston's not going to
3 games out of the division.
Yeah,
which is terrifying.
They're right back in with Seattle. Best possibility here is Seattle loses a bunch and then trades one of their starters at the deadline.
We don't want Houston back in the playoffs again right after we thought they fell off.
Yeah, it was really fun for a little bit when Houston didn't exist. Oh, wait, hold up. Is Valdez not hurt, Cody? I thought he was. I thought you said that.
I don't think he is. I think Houston's rotation is getting healthier, which is scary.
Houston's been really good. Also,
Valdez is pitching tomorrow.
Yeah, for Dirt Racing previews there, Nunez's ERA is way up because he's starting this year. But the reason they have him starting makes a lot of sense to me, actually. And it was something that I praised in the offseason. They have him starting because he's got one of the best arms in the system. And when you have a guy with a live arm like that, it's worth giving them a shot to start. He's a fine reliever. Like he'll be a good reliever. But it's worth trying it and seeing if he can start, because the amount of value that you get out of a homegrown starter is so much more than the value you get out of a homegrown reliever. And we talked about this with Jordan Hicks. Had the Cardinals let him work his way through the system properly and start, maybe they would have had an elite starter for 6 years. The same thing goes for Helsley, right? If they had let him start, maybe he would have been better. When we finally see them give Palante a real chance to like hone in as a starter, develop as a starter, and then come up as a starter, the results have been much, much better. It doesn't always work. They've tried that cautious starter-only approach for Libby, and it didn't work. So it's not a guarantee. But I liked the decision to let Nunez start. And if it's an absolute failure this year, then you let him leave. Same thing for Showalter there. Showalter has a really good fastball, and it's worth a shot. Absolutely, Kareem. He's got the best changeup we've ever seen. Let him start and see what happens. And if it doesn't work, then you let him be a reliever. You're not killing someone's development by letting them start in the minors for a season or two. All you're doing is giving them a chance to be way more valuable than they were before. So, yeah, I hope Showalter starts. I think he should be a starter as of right now. He's done nothing to prove that he can't. And then when guys don't start, they go to the pen and they're able to lean on their 1 or 2 plus pitchings or 1 or 2 plus offerings. So, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that Nunez was starting. It was the right decision by the Cardinals.
Yeah. I think those are the trades that we wanted to do to make our like perfect trade deadline. Obviously, I don't think that's going to happen. Mo never really does what we want him to do. Well, He gets Sonny Gray, which is what you wanted, but he didn't get the other guys that you wanted. But yeah, I'm excited to see how the rest of this Pirates series goes. We're recording a little bit earlier just because the holiday, everybody's schedules are kind of weird. But yesterday's game was fun. Nolan Gorman might just be allergic to the month of June. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I actually almost dropped him in fantasy the day before, but then I kept him. Thanks, Josh. If he's still watching, but what do you want to see out of this team right before the All-Star break? What do you want to see us like get back into contention? Obviously, the Brewers are allergic to losing. That's tough.
Yeah. Well, what's the last time the Cardinals lost a series? I'm pulling up the schedule right now so I can look at it. Is that the last series we lost? That's like
we've had some splits. We've had some like 4-gamers, but like I don't think we've won those series. But like,
oh, we lost the series in Miami. I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah.
But out of our last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out of our last 8 series, we've only lost twice. So I think for the Cardinals, the recipe is just keep winning series. They've slowly been getting over 500. Like you said, there's some splits in there. There's 2 series losses, 1 to Miami, 1 to Houston. But both those were kind of weird series. The Miami one, they got walked off on back-to-back days. It's like, what are you going to do about that? Maybe not give up 9 runs to Miami, but that's a different story. So all they can do is just keep winning the series. Let's either get 1 tonight or 1 tomorrow, win the series in Pittsburgh, and then move on. And that's what they've been doing. They've been able to just stay focused in the moment, keep winning series, and it's been awesome. So that's what I want to see out of this team. Keep doing that, climb farther over 500, maybe be within 4 or 5 games at the All-Star break. Like if the Cardinals are only down 3.5 or 4 games at the break, we are so happy. That'd be absolutely massive. So they've gotten a little lucky to avoid some guys. Like we're not facing Skeens this series, which is really nice. But at the same time, it's not like the Cardinals have only faced bums. Mitch Keller's been really good against everybody not from St. Louis this year. It's just he's been rocked by the Cardinals twice, and we're killing his season numbers, which is so funny. But, keep winning games, keep winning series.
Yeah, just keep hitting. Do what you did yesterday to like every good pitcher you face, and then we're talking about an offense that's pretty good, right? Arenado still didn't get a hit, but you know what? That's fine. At this point, I've kind of given up. He's batting 6th now. You're not going to get too much.
It's tough to see Arenado. Yeah, it's not great.
I know. But yeah, the All-Star game is coming up. We might have a members stream for the All-Star game. We might watch that together. So if you want to sign up for a membership, just support us a little bit. The link is in YouTube on desktop. I don't think it's on mobile, but if you're on the desktop version of YouTube, sign up for our membership. Just $1 a month gets you access to our Discord, get to watch games with us. We'll be doing the All-Star game. Not the home run derby. I'm not watching the home run derby out of protest because Dave Roberts hates fun and doesn't want Ohtani in it. And Ohtani was like, okay, sure. But yeah, you can watch the All-Star game with us when all 7 Cardinals hopefully win the National League the game. So
I wish. Dude, this is a hot take, but I think the All-Star game should still matter. I liked when the All-Star game determined home field advantage in the World Series because I thought it was really fun. And getting rid of it was dumb. But as Andrew said, our stream's going to be really fun. We love our members. Being a member affords some cool privileges. We have a Discord that's really fun. We like to bounce ideas off of each other in there. Members-only streams are something we're going to keep doing. It just gives you more access. What we're trying to do is build out infrastructure for Cardinals fans to be Cardinals fans together, right? So it's like a big group chat on Discord. Super fun if you're not familiar. Make sure to get in on that because it's awesome. And you get a little, loyalty thing on the stream. So we love seeing our members in the chat. Thanks for tuning in today. Also, just be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. We're closing in on 2,000 subscribers. We're really excited about that. It's a big milestone.
We're giving away a City Connect jersey once we hit that number. So we have a tweet out there. If you go out and retweet that, that's all you have to do to enter to win the City Connect jersey that we're giving away. Some people want Mason Wynn. I don't know if that's an available option, which is really unfortunate. But there's a bunch of different players that we'll let you choose from. But once we hit 2,000 subscribers, we're giving away a City Connect jersey. Just go on our Twitter. It's our pinned tweet. Just retweet it, comment that you've subscribed, and then you will enter for a chance to win a very nice red jersey. So, yeah. And we got a stream with Kareem coming up for the draft.
Oh, yeah. The draft special is going to be awesome. There's probably nobody in the space who does more work with the draft than Kareem. He probably knows more about the draft than guys in the front office. The last couple of years, he's known who the Cardinals are picking before they even pick. It's been pretty crazy. He's gotten it right a couple times in a row. So make sure you're there.
I'll give you $5 if you say it's Jack Caglione.
No, don't say it's Jack Caglione. I know Josh will
give you $5 if you say it's not, but
I want it to be JJ
$5 or much more.
But if you're interested in that at all, we're going to be watching that with Kareem. He's going to be breaking stuff down live with us. It's going to be so much fun. So yeah, make sure you like and subscribe. Like we said, closing on 2,000. We're almost there. Huge milestone for the channel. Honestly, something we thought we'd never get to when we started this. Now it's been 16 months since we first came up with the idea. So we're just awesome to be here. Thanks for supporting us, guys. Share, show your friends, and we'll see you next time on Deal in the Cards.